guys, let's have a chat about boundaries today. And honestly, this is going to be a upcoming series that I have on my channel because there's a bunch of different videos that I want to make talking about the ins and outs of everything. So this one today is just going to be an introduction, more like a what are boundaries, why do we need them, why would it apply to our lives? So let's go and talk about it, y'all. So while we're talking about this today, I want you guys to keep certain things in your mind. Not a lot of things, but just a couple things in your mind. And I want you to keep these things in your mind throughout the whole series because, in my opinion, it will help you establish your boundaries and realize your reasons for them and maybe help you narrow down the process and see what you want to set a boundary for and what you don't need to set a boundary for. It will, kind of like an elimination process, if you will. The first thing is, what is it that you're trying to avoid? Is it someone's actions? The way that they act while they're around you, in your house, in your presence, period? Is it something that they do? And when I say actions, I mean more like, the way that they act, their emotions, their attitudes, stuff like that. And when it's something that they do, it's, a certain thing that they may do in your house that you don't appreciate, or certain things that they do if you have younger children. Just it can also be how your loved one reacts when something happens, like a consequence for their action, how they act around that. So this is how we start setting the framework for setting boundaries. And these are the things that have worked best for me in setting boundaries in my life. And I just want to kind of, give it to you guys so you can take what you like and leave the rest. The second thing that I want you guys to think about through this whole series is, why are these important to you? So why are these actions important to you? Why is this behavior important to you? Is it disrupting your family life? Is it disrupting your personal life? Is it causing you a lot of stress? Whatever the case may be, just try to think about why these things that you are considering setting a boundary about are important to you. So the purpose of boundaries, the biggest one for me when I'm setting a boundary or considering setting a boundary for somebody, is a boundary is a way to bring a balance in your life. And when I say balance, I mean it is a balance between your needs and whoever you're setting this boundary for, their needs. Balance in anything in your life will bring about peace and a less stressful environment. And who doesn't want that, right? And speaking on the balance part of things, it also will enable you to set that boundary and find that balance between what you consider enabling behavior and what you consider non-enabling behavior. That's something that we'll get into in another video because I get a lot of questions about that when I'm talking to people about setting boundaries, especially with people in their lives that are struggling with addiction or alcoholism or anything that brings chaos into their life. So we'll talk about that because a lot of people think that you have to have really strict boundaries. Everything that isn't black and white will fall under enabling, and I have a little different take on that. So we'll get into that. Also, just talking about balance, what good boundaries will do and why it's good for you to set them. It brings a measure of control and safety to your life in what is a lot of times a very chaotic situation. Anytime that you are in the need to set a boundary, it's going to bring a measure of control back to your life. And also, if you are dealing with a chaotic situation, setting those boundaries in your life and learning how to stand firm on them and not letting your needs and your wants be trampled over gives you a lot of calmness to what is often a very chaotic situation. So why would you set boundaries? Well, you set boundaries because it's a way to protect your peace and safety. And we did kind of just touch on that a minute ago. But it also lets your loved one or whoever it is in your life that you're setting a boundary for, let them know 100% where you stand. It also stops letting the actions of the person that you are setting a boundary for hold you hostage. So when you set boundaries for people and you remain firm in them, their actions and what they do can no longer hold you hostage because you have kind of removed yourself from that situation. Just an example, if you set a boundary saying that you're not going to let your son or daughter who is struggling with substance use, if they're not in the house by 11 o'clock, you're going to lock the door. Presumably they don't have a key, but you're going to lock the door and they're going to have to find somewhere else to sleep for the night. What that does by setting that boundary and reinforcing that boundary is it allows your entire family to know that, at 11 o'clock, the door's going to be locked. Whoever's in the house is in the house. They're safe, they're sound, and everyone can go to sleep. And that's a big boundary for a lot of people to set that have loved ones that are in active use or that are struggling with alcoholism. that's disruptive to their family life, especially if there are younger children in the household, because if you have someone that's coming in all hours of the night and bringing in other people that you may or may not know, and they're doing things that you don't approve of in your house or that could be illegal, and you set that boundary for them, that blocks it off. At 11 o'clock at night or whatever time you set, it happens no more. They can't bring those people into your house. And that boundary also lets everyone in your house be able to go to sleep and a good restful night's of sleep, because, kids have to get up and go to school the next morning. Adults in the house have to get up and go to work the next morning, and not everybody can be up all night with, someone that may come into your house intoxicated, things like that. So that's a really good boundary that I help a lot of people set with their loved ones and help them learn how to uphold it, because, setting boundaries is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do. It's also really hard to uphold them and stand your ground and say, this is an uncrossable boundary for me and I can't let you cross it. Along that same line, when you establish boundaries for your loved ones, what that does is it gives them and you and everybody else that is involved in the situation in the household, it gives them a set of guidelines. And it tells them, this behavior is unacceptable for me. This is what I expect out of you, and this is what's going to happen if you don't. So it lets them know, clear and black and white, this is what I expect from you. These are what your responsibilities are, and these are the consequences that are going to happen if you throw all of that to the wayside and you disregard or disrespect my boundaries. And I want you guys also to remember that when you are going through this process and you're trying to learn about boundaries and how to set them, boundaries are set for us. By us, I mean you. If you're sitting there watching this video and you're thinking, yeah, this is something that I need to look into, this is something I need to do, remember that these boundaries are set for you. You can't set boundaries for other people in your life. And the first time somebody said that to me, I was like, well, that's a little backwards. To me, and the way my brain thinks, I didn't agree with the way it was put. The more I've learned, the more educated I've become about this, I understand that, because we set boundaries for us, saying, this is the behavior I'll tolerate, this is the behavior I won't tolerate, etc. Those are our boundaries. That's what we're going to put up with and what we're not. We can't set those boundaries for other people, because when you tell other people what to do, does it work? Typically it doesn't. It doesn't sink into them. So boundaries are about what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do, not your loved one. And that's what that statement means about setting boundaries for ourselves and not our loved ones. Because if we try to tell our loved one what to do and what not to do, it's unrealistic and it's not going to work. We can't tell someone else what to do with their lives. If we could tell people that, we would tell people, not to do the harmful behaviors that they're doing to themselves. If you guys have been with me for any length of time at all, you know that I am a woman in long-term recovery. I was in active addiction for 14 plus years. So just to kind of give you a little insight from that perspective, especially if you're watching this and you've never struggled with addiction before or alcoholism, you're watching this video because you think that you have somebody in your life that you need to set boundaries for. I want you to know that when we are in our active addiction and we're out there running and gunning and using, most of us have a lot of trauma in our lives, and we have a lot of trouble knowing how to handle that. Most of us are unequipped on how to handle that. We don't know where to start. And there's a lot of times, speaking for me personally, there was a lot of trauma in my childhood that I didn't remember until I got into recovery. And not making excuses for the way that we act when we're in active use, because that's just not something I do, but to kind of give you an insight more so. So the reason I say that about trauma is because we're ill-equipped, to handle that or to start handling that. And a lot of times that's why we start using. And then when we realize what it does and that it numbs all that pain, and, even though it's not a healthy way to deal with it, in our minds, we are dealing with it because it doesn't hurt anymore. We can go about what we think appears to be our normal life and not have to worry about painful things that have happened to us that we have no idea how to deal with, or may, still be an ongoing situation. We don't know how to make it stop. Remembering this, and along with some of the other points that we talked about, especially at, the beginning of the video, it would just make this whole process easier on you, as easy as it can be. Because setting boundaries for your loved ones is sometimes a really hard thing to do, especially if it's a new experience for you. hopefully going through this video series with you guys, it will give you an insight, like I said, because I am in recovery and I did use for such a long time. I'm going to talk about how I set boundaries in my recovery, because that's something that when we get into recovery that we have to learn how to do. So if you struggle with this, don't think that you're alone, because you're not. I just thought that I was in a unique position to come on and talk to you guys about this because of my past with my active use, and because I am a certified peer now, and because I help people with this stuff, anytime I'm asked to. And I can give you a little bit of insight where sometimes if you go to talk to like a therapist, they don't know what's going through your loved one's head. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be able to tell you every time, but it just gives you guys a different perspective to see it from my point of view. You guys let me know if this is something that you're interested in. Drop me a comment or hit that thumbs up button if you like this video. Let me know, give me some feedback. And also if there's anything that you want me to touch on specifically. I do have, I think it's like 8 or 9 videos that I have planned out for us to go through to like hit the most important things that I normally talk about when I'm talking about boundaries with people. But if there's something specific that you want to ask me, please drop it in the comments below. That is it for today's video. I love you guys. Be nice to yourselves. Be nice to each other, because you never know what somebody is going through. And I will see you shortly. Love you guys.